The more people that play video games, the better. But, well, in some ways, not necessarily in skill. Actually, kind of the opposite. And if you're among that casual mass, there are certain corners of the gaming world it doesn't make sense to go. Hi, folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, 10 games you shouldn't play if you suck at video games. Starting off with number 10, it's Escape from Tarkov. This hardcore multiplayer extraction shooter is known for two things: controversial developers and its utterly unforgiving difficulty. There's a baseline expectation challenge when coming into any online game because real people playing the game are always going to be more unpredictable than AI. That simple. But compared to your standard shooters, this game is on another level. Everything is working against you, from the complex controls to the bare bones in-game map to the lack of tutorials for the many complex systems of Escape from Tarkov. Everything is obtuse and difficult. Just doing something basic like healing requires multiple items that don't work the way you might think. Even something that would normally be as simple as gun customization is confusing as hell because attachments often require other attachments to even work. Certain things only work with certain guns, and none of it's explained anywhere. For most new players, the experience of playing Tarkov is that you drop into a map with your starter equipment, wander around for 10 minutes not knowing what's going on, and then die. In this game's case, you're just as likely to get shot by an AI enemy as another player, because the AI in this game is pinpoint accurate. It's also an extraction game, so if you die in a mission, you lose everything that's not insured. The best players are rolling around with modded out weapons and body armor, where you're just some chump with a pea shooter against them. Pretty much everything is working against you in this game, and it just dares you to keep playing. For the right kind of player, it is the perfect game. You got to be willing to put up with a lot of bull, but there is a lot of satisfaction to be had here. But if you just plain suck, maybe start with something that has lower stakes. Playing Tarkov as your first shooter is like being a first-time gambler and playing Russian roulette. You don't have to do that to yourself.
One-on-one.
At number 9 is Ghost Runner. So let's roll back to something that's a little less hardcore, but still brutally difficult if you're not on the game's wavelength. Ghost Runner is basically Hotline Miami, but first person, and that means that death comes after just a single hit in a game where most enemies have pistols, machine guns, and worse. Even experienced FPS players are going to die a lot in this one, but if you're not, it's not so much frustrating but fun. It's just frustrating. It's one of those games where you have to kind of have a built-in muscle memory if you want to get good, and some people are just going to absolutely hate that. The thing about games like Hotline Miami is it's a pixel art game, top-down view. You can see everything that is coming and plan accordingly, at least to some extent. In Ghost Runner, that's just not the case. You're trapped in first person, and while sometimes the game lets you look at the area before you go through it, most of the time you're forced to rely on instinct or trial and error to get through some of these fights. Also, Hotline Miami is a lot more mechanically simple than Ghost Runner. Because of first-person view alone, it can be much fiddlier, and it's easy to make mistakes if you're a noob. Or a veteran, for that matter. It's easy to make mistakes. It's sort of the playstyle that a lot of FPS players just aren't used to, and it can be a real smack in the face. At the end of the day, it's one of those games that eventually clicks or it doesn't. There's a reason why it's kind of divisive. Some players just don't get used to the game's rhythm, so every enemy is a struggle to get through. It's a game that it does expect a lot from you. Maybe not as much as Tarkov, per se. It's a single-player game, after all, but the level of challenge here can be overwhelming for someone who sucks at video games. Even slow-mo is not going to be enough to save you. And number 8 is Rocket League. There's games with high skill ceilings, and then there's Rocket League. Might look like a cute little car-based soccer game that can be a lot of fun, screw around in and stuff, and that's true, it can be. But if you're playing the game for real, like against other players, you gotta throw any of those expectations out the window. This is not an easy time. The people who play this game now are all highly skilled, extremely competitive, and know the game inside out. And if you join a team as a little noob who has no idea what they're doing, expect your team to get basically pissed off at you for being dead weight. If you want to play Rocket League online for real, you have to learn the ins and outs of how to play it. And even at the lower levels, you need to be able to perform some tricky maneuvers, like it's second nature to be frank. Otherwise, you're really just of no value to your team. And that's just low levels. At high skill levels, it is unbelievable the sort of moves players pull off in this game. Getting good at it requires a special set of skills that are good for Rocket League, and that's it. They're good for Rocket League. It's a unique game. There's really just nothing quite like it in the multiplayer space, which means there's a hardcore group of players who have been playing this for years, and they're able to do some truly mind-boggling feats. And by that, I mean they will report you for sucking too hard. Games where you're on your own are bad enough, but when you got a whole team that relies on you to pull your weight, things are going to get worse. This game requires a lot from its players. I mean, look at this beginner's guide on Reddit. Look at this beginner's guide on Reddit. This is a literal dissertation. For most games, getting started means skipping through a few tutorial messages, but in Rocket League, you got to study up because your first game ever is your exam, and if you flunk it, you might as well uninstall it. At number 7 is Spelunky 2. There's plenty of brutal roguelikes out there, but Spelunky 2 is just next level. The first game was rough, but this one cranks the difficulty dial all the way up and snaps it off. Like, it's unbelievable. If you've never seen these games before, they might seem like cute little platformers, but they're actually brutal tests of endurance and mental fortitude. Every little thing wants to kill you. There's traps and enemies everywhere. And you're the world's most fragile platforming character who takes damage from falling a little more than half the screen. And this game is all about going downward. These games revel in cascading failures where unexpected and chaotic things can happen procedurally that pretty much universally lead to death. If you're willing to roll with it, the deaths can be pretty fun rather than frustrating. But if you're the type that wants to get through the game and be done with it, these games are, for a lot of people, absolutely miserable. There's so many ways to die, and it forces you to play really cautiously, but there's still going to be so many things that just happen you don't predict. So you'll end up wasting an hour more on yet another unsuccessful run. The original game would start getting serious around the ice caves, the third area out of 4, but Spelunky 2 just wastes no time. They're out to kill you in the first area, and it only gets more sadistic from there. It's a game that's made for masochists that mastered the first game and are looking for a greater challenge, not for newbies looking to start out. Roguelike games just aren't good for players who are just starting out or for people who just kind of suck. There's no autosaves, there's no checkpoints to fall back on. If you die, your progress gets reset and you have to start again. There are some roguelikes with the progression, so like dying isn't that bad, but Spelunky 2 is old school. The best you can get is eventually starting from lower levels, which is not going to help if you suck at the game. In fact, you'll get killed faster. And number 6 is Rainbow Six Siege. The thing that makes Siege so newbie unfriendly is just how different it is from a traditional shooter. Yeah, there's shooting, everybody's got a gun, but the siege part is what makes the game tricky. Attacks can come from anywhere. Enemy players can smash open doors, crash through walls, break in through ceilings. Attacks can come from any direction. It all depends on the players you're facing and what abilities they have. Many of the operators' abilities are also just not intuitive, and understanding how each one of those works, it's necessary to do well in the game, let's say. It's a complicated game with a lot of moving parts, requires a lot of teamwork and cooperation to pull out a victory, and for a lot of game modes, dying is a big setback. If you're just running around like an idiot trying to up your KDR, you're going to be in for a rude awakening. It's not that kind of game. You're going to get torn to pieces by your opponents and your allies for being worthless. Getting good at Siege means shooting at a high degree of accuracy and having a deep understanding of the game's mechanics. You need to know how to place traps and the best ways to counter them. You need to know operator gimmicks and how to disable them. Not to mention understanding each of the various maps to know when and where other players can and will attack from. There's a hell of a lot of stuff to know. But if you can't shoot with some degree of accuracy, you might as well give up now. Like, the fast reaction time is still very necessary. There's no class for the sucky players here, no healer or support that can hang back and just play the objectives. You just got to be able to pull it out. Otherwise, you're not pulling your weight. Rainbow Six Siege is a hardcore and very, very technical FPS. And if you suck, don't bother. It's not going to be fun for you. And number 5 is Ghosts and Goblins Resurrection. Capcom took one of the hardest games of all time, the original Ghosts and Goblins for NES, and made it way worse. The 2021 follow-up is so hard that it is frankly insulting. You'd think a new version of a classic game would include some modern conveniences to make it a smoother, more balanced experience, and in a way they did. But they made the game 10 times harder to compensate. Like the first level. The first level is ridiculously hard, and it only gets worse. Right from the first second, the game is just bombarding you with swarms of enemies and unpredictable traps. It's a brutal gauntlet meant to test your resolve at every step. If you're a masochist, there's a certain satisfaction at dying and dying again, only to finally make a tiny bit of progress. But if you just suck, these kinds of games don't let you progress. You're just slamming your head against a brick wall, and you're kind of like, well, eventually that brick wall is going to break. And if you suck, it's not gonna. You got to know how to break the brick wall. That's the thing about this game. It's not just regular hard. It may be, no joke, one of the hardest games ever. Or at least one of the hardest given a wide release by a major publisher. It cannot be understated how relentlessly dickish this game can be. The original NES game looked like it's for babies. I'm not even kidding either. There's no comparison. We live in an age where tough games are big again. Some of the best-selling, most popular games are very difficult, but Ghosts and Goblins Resurrection, it went overboard. It's just too damn hard. If you suck at platformers, stay far, far away from this one. And number 4 is Sekiro. Yeah, kind of cliche to bring this one up at this point, but there's a reason for that. This game is really damn hard. If you want to stand any kind of chance in this game, you gotta get good at parries and counters. That's the name of the game. Timing is everything in this game. Death can come in literally seconds. Doesn't take a lot of hits to get wiped out. And even with additional lives, that's where the subtle shadows die twice comes from. It's still a ball-busting experience. It's one of those games that can eventually be mastered, but when you're just starting out, even the most basic enemies are going to give you trouble. I remember struggling for way too long against the first ogre mini-boss. It's like this stupid thing was impossible, but with enough perseverance, even a chump with bad reflexes can get through. The most important skill to learn in this game is pattern recognition. Bar none. You got to observe enemies, figure out the exact right time to counter. And if you can do that, you can get pretty good in Sekiro. But if you're impatient and try to spam the block command too often, it's going to get really frustrating really fast. Not to say that spamming block doesn't ever work, because it actually does a lot of the time in a pinch. But if you can get the timing right to properly parry enemy attacks, you're going to do better at this game overall. It's just really tough. No matter how good you think you are at the beginning, you're probably still going to die a lot because that's the kind of game it is. It's an unforgiving, cruel experience for beginners. If you're still a beginner, it's not going to be fun to play Sekiro unless you really like to die over and over again. Maybe you do. I don't know. And maybe you learn best by jumping into the deep end. No judgment if that's the case, but you've been warned. And number 3 is League of Legends. I'm putting League in the title, but this is really a catch-all for every Dota and Dota-like out there. For as popular as these games are, they are not kind to players who suck. There's a term for them in the community, feeders. And if you are one, you're not going to be popular. If you got a bad player on your team in a regular game like Call of Duty or something, having a crappy player is bad. But in these games, anytime one of your team dies, it's not just a setback for you, it's a boost for your enemies.
Shall transcend.
To be fair, though, it's very easy to be bad at these games. There's tons of heroes or legends or whatever the game wants to call them, each with their own mechanics, abilities, and counters. Learning to play as one of these guys is like learning to play a fighting game character, except that in Dotas, there's hard counters depending on who you're playing as. You're always at a disadvantage against certain players, so you can't just learn your own guy's strengths and weaknesses. You have to have a broad knowledge of how everything works. There's a hell of a lot you need to know going into one of these games, and even though they're top-down, there's still a certain amount of precision and skill required to play effectively. For certain types of players, it's a real thrill, but it can also be frustrating as hell, and that's if you're good at these games. If you're bad at them, well, it's pretty much all misery. It's one of those games where playing badly isn't just bad for you, it's bad for everyone.
I know what I'm doing.
At number 2 is Grand Poo World 3. Forget sucking at video games. You shouldn't play this if you're good. Being good isn't enough for Grand Poo World 3. You've got to be a Mario god to even get through the first stage, and it only gets tougher from there. Ever hear of Kaizo? This game is that. A Kaizo is a hack where the game is pushed to its absolute limit for difficulty. These things are designed to be possible, but only for the most degenerate pain junkies. Death is literally everywhere in these things. Surviving means basically playing perfect. And because Mario games are momentum based, that means the perfect movement is way, way harder. Stopping means losing momentum, which means you can't do it anymore. It becomes impossible. So what else do I really need to say here? Look at this mess. There's spikes everywhere. All the jumps are pixel perfect. You got to do counterintuitive tricks to survive. And of course, there's the troll traps everywhere like invisible blocks meant to catch you off guard. It's the absolute pinnacle in terms of game difficulty. And if you suck at games, just stick to the regular Super Mario World. This is masochistic insanity. And finally, at number 1, Dudonpachi Daioju. A fun name to say, a hard game to play. As insane as Kaizos like Grand Poo World are, people did manage to complete them, and relatively quickly too. Want to know how long it took for somebody to beat this game? 7 years. 7 years. Or at least that's how long it took to beat the Death Label mode. But that doesn't mean the rest of the game's easy. Far from it. This is one of the hardest shoot-'em-ups ever made. It's the definition of a bullet hell. These games are defined by one thing, and one thing only, tons and tons of projectiles. You're somehow supposed to avoid this wall of death, and that's primarily where the challenge comes in. These games are designed to be as unrelentingly difficult as possible. The level of challenge on display here is utterly absurd.
走行全破壊を確認しました。確認しました。着ぐるみ剥がされた裸ん坊さんね。もっと実稼働臨界点まで。
You can count your playtime in seconds at times. It's just overwhelming how much crap this game throws at you. I think it's safe to say that if you're not any good at shmups, stay far, far away from this one. These games are designed for only the most dedicated players. You gotta be willing to put in hundreds of hours of experience just to make incremental progress. These games are about as close as a game can be to impossible while still being technically beatable by a human being. And if that sounds like the opposite of fun to you, you should probably avoid it. There are shmups out there that are new player friendly. They aren't all this monstrously difficult, but in general, it's a genre for people who are willing to put up with some pretty old school design. That is to say, they're generally pretty hard. This game just so happens to be one of the hardest. Sucky players need not apply. There's nothing to be gained here, believe me. And that's all for today. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription, so click subscribe. Don't forget to enable all notifications, and as always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at FalconTheHero, and we'll see you next time right here on gameranx.